How's it going, everyone? It's Javi from Marshall Shot. That was the day. It's February 9, 2021, and I hope you guys are having a good day. As today, we're going to talk about the Clipper system that's moving through the United States, bringing up to 6 inches of snow in some areas. And we'll also talk about the next major Mid-Atlantic snowstorm that's going to dump close to a foot of snow in many areas in Mid-Atlantic. And we'll also talk about the next major Northeast, Midwest, Southeast snowstorm that could happen later next week. Well, before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by first taking a look at this snowstorm that's currently impacting us here in the Northeast, where you see a large swath of snow. And most of the snow is towards southern New England, such as Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and a little bit of upstate New York, and a little bit of Vermont and New Hampshire. And it's expected to dump at least a decent amount of snow, 3 to 5 inches further southward, I'd say around Connecticut and Massachusetts, as it'll continue on throughout the day for you guys heading into the afternoon before I'd say it begins to move out towards sunset. I'd say right around 5 to 6 o'clock for most of New England. We might see a little bit of snow showers still in Boston and Cape Cod, but for the most part, this should be gone by, I'd say, around 8 to 9 p.m. at night. So this should be a quick mover, and it won't dump very heavy snow because it doesn't really have enough time to reach its max intensity to impact the United States, because it's going to move relatively fast thanks to the westerly winds. If this were moving slower and this was over the United States for a longer time, then we could be talking about a major snowstorm. But in this case, it's going to move very fast, dump at least around 3 to 5 inches of snow further southward, and then 1 to 3 more in the areas further northward, or where they won't be in that convergent zone to get the heaviest snow. So for the most part, this should be at least something you guys need to be aware of, because 3 to 5 inches could still cause havoc on the roads, and do not underestimate it. And you might want to make second thoughts of driving today in the afternoon throughout southern New England, because it's going to be the worst for you guys. And for those further south, such as New Jersey, and I'd say just south of Trenton, New Jersey, you're going to miss out primarily on most of the snow, because it's going to be too warm for it, and most of the snow swaths will be well far up to the north to bring much of any snow, I'd say just south of New York City. So that's going to be it for this snowstorm. Now let's talk about this next potential major snowstorm that could happen this Thursday. So it's only 48 hours away, this snowstorm, which could dump up to a foot of snow in some areas. So let me show you guys the European model, the model that tends to be a little bit more reliable than GFS. So here we are, Wednesday. You see there's a little bit of rain showers throughout Texas and throughout the Southeast. We do see a little bit of mixing as well, and very scattered snow showers just to the north of this low pressure system. So it's fairly weak as of right now. However, it will strengthen because there's going to be an enhanced amount of unstable air in this region, which is going to really create a lot of that thunderstorm activity to really strengthen this storm. So let's move a little bit forward to 42 hours from now. You see we begin to see a little bit more rain showers over the southeast. We begin to see that snow extend just north of the Ohio River Valley, and then it's going to continue to strengthen and strengthen more and more as it continues to move further and further to the east, where it's going to bring a lot of that cold air behind it, and it's going to interact with a very unstable environment that wasn't there when it was over the Rocky Mountain ranges. So it's definitely going to enhance that unstable air. And by 48 hours, right around early Thursday, we begin to see a heavy snow band form just along the Ohio River Valley. And then what's interesting is that we also have an ice threat, and this is as a result of temperature differences and unstable air aloft within the atmosphere, vertically speaking, where there's going to be just enough warm air in the mid levels of the atmosphere to create a freezing rain threat, where the snow that's going to obviously fall from the higher altitudes will eventually melt in mid latitudes. I mean the mid levels of the atmosphere, and then towards the surface it'll refreeze thanks to the freezing temperatures along the surface just south of the Ohio River Valley. So Kentucky and a lot of West Virginia and even northern Arkansas, Missouri, definitely need to pay a close eye on this because this could potentially be a major ice event for a lot of you guys, and this could cause a ton of havoc. And the philosophy I go by is that a half an inch of ice, or not even a half an inch, a quarter of an inch of ice is more dangerous than 10 inches of snow, in my opinion. So just because your forecast might be less than an inch of ice, you might think that that's nothing, but even a quarter of an inch, a tenth of an inch of ice could cause major problems. And when we're talking about a half an inch of ice, that's just devastating levels of how much havoc and it could cause, because it could bring down power thanks to all the weight that the branches are holding of the from the ice that formed on the branches. And also it's a lot more slick on the roads and even snowfall because ice is a lot more prone to melt than the actual snow. So it creates a friction between the tires and the roadways thanks to the increased amount of ice. And as a result, it's a lot more slick and dangerous ice, I'd say, than even snow. But here we are 48 hours on Thursday. Moving forward, we begin to see that snow extend to the mid-Atlantic states, as there's going to be even more unstable air located right around the northeast, where we have this dominating ridge just to the north of it that's maintaining the Arctic air that's been towards the northeast and the eastern half of the United States for the past several weeks. And I believe that this cold air that's just gonna linger around and meander over the northeast will induce a lot of snowstorm activities and will create a lot of potential snowstorms. So I'd watch out if you're in the eastern half of the United States for the next several weeks, because not only are you in the most active month when it comes to snowstorms, you're also in a negative Arctic oscillation, which means that there's just going to be a lot of jet stream dips to really create the unstable air and bring the Arctic air far south enough to create a lot of snowstorms for a lot of you guys. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, where we're seeing that snow extend throughout the mid-Atlantic. We're talking about DC is under the heavy snow, Delmarva Peninsula as well, Wilmington, Delaware, and just south of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. They're all getting impacted by very heavy to moderate snow, and this could dump a lot of snow over a long period, because this is going to be a very broad storm, as you could tell, because this frontal boundary is going to be very, very broad, because the jet stream won't dip sort of far south enough to really make this storm to position the jet stream and this frontal boundary in a vertical position, which would limit the snowfall because then the rain swath is a lot less broad. And since this storm is moving from from west to east, that means that it wouldn't be as broad if this was a straight up vertical type of storm, but this is horizontal and diagonal. And since weather moves from west to east, then there's going to be a long duration of snow left for you guys, since you see all the thunderstorm activity and the ice activity just to the southwest of a lot of you guys in mid-Atlantic. So this will enhance a lot of the potential snowfall. And then head into Thursday, that unstable air really takes over, where we see a lot more thunderstorm activity throughout the southeast and snow throughout the mid-Atlantic, like Washington DC. And however, the good news for some who don't like snow, or the bad news for those who do like snow in the northeast, including me, there's gonna be a big ridge over the northeast, and now the computer models are detecting that more than likely this snow is gonna stay far south, and majority of the snowfall will stay just south of New York City. So if you're hoping for snow in New England or upstate New York, or even a lot of snow in northern New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the bad news is that it's unlikely it's going to happen at this point, and especially since the computer models are both agreeing with it when we're only 2 days out from the event, it's unlikely that it'll make such a drastic change in the north, where suddenly a lot of the northeast and New England is a part of snow, as more than likely this will mainly bring snow just south of New York City, and the most major snowfall will be right around the mid-Atlantic, right around Washington DC, where, like I said, you could experience well over a foot in some areas, especially in the higher elevations. And then continuing on 78 hours from now, you see that the snow is even bigger and heavier 78 hours from now. As you see, this is a very long duration event because this snow started right around the mid-Atlantic for just 30 hours earlier, and then 30 hours later it's still over the mid-Atlantic and bringing you heavy snow based off of what the European model is saying. And then finally, headed into 90 hours from now, nearly 4 days from now, this storm eventually loses its steam and will and a lot of snow as well is gone, and this storm should completely dissipate by the time we head into this Tuesday. Now, in terms of how much snow you guys should expect from this based off of the European model, the European model is expecting a large area of over a foot of snow, and the sweet spot seems to be right around Virginia, northern Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. But even Washington, D.C. is under around 8 inches of snow, which is considered major for you guys. West Virginia is under 6 to 12 inches as well, and like saying the Delaware Peninsula also experiencing over 6 inches of snow. And then and you see just north, there isn't a ton of snow. You might be noting that there's a little bit of snowfall accumulation up here, but that's more associated with the current snowstorm we're experiencing in the northeast rather than the next snowstorm that's expected to impact the mid-Atlantic. So do not expect much of any snow in New England and northeast. I'd say it maybe could change, but I find it unlikely you guys will see much of any snow from this next snowstorm. And in terms of my snowfall forecast regarding this snowstorm, you see a large area of 6 to 12 inches throughout Maryland and Delaware Peninsula, where I expect it to be the sweet spot for you guys when it comes to snowfall. And Washington, D.C. will be right at the target of this storm, and this should be considered major, and this should begin right around Thursday, very early on Thursday, and this should extend to all the way to Friday, where it's just going to be a very long duration event for you guys. And this should end right around late Friday, so so you guys definitely need to prepare throughout the mid-Atlantic and even southern New Jersey, where you could get impacted, because it's going to be major, and this might be the biggest snowstorm you've experienced in the DC area all winter, because the prior two major northeast snowstorms haven't brought the biggest snowfall accumulation in Washington, D.C., where the first snowstorm back in middle of December brought around 2 inches of around Washington, D.C., I'm pretty sure. And then this previous snowstorm, from what I heard, dumped around 4 inches of snow right around Washington, D.C. So this should be the redeeming snowstorm for you guys from the snowfall deficit you've been experiencing. So definitely prepare, because this is going to be major, and it's probably going to be quite a while for you guys right around the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. You've experienced this snow this big, especially since the prior two winters were kind of mediocre when it came to snowfall in the Northeast. Now let's move on to this next snowstorm, which could be even more major than the one we're seeing right now. And it not only will affect potentially the southeast like you see here, this could extend to, well, it's more likely this will extend to the Midwest and potentially the Northeast. If we take a look at the GFS model, it's taking a very dire type of forecast when it comes to this snowstorm. So let's take a look at the forecasted radar based off of what the GFS model is forecasting, and you see that there's a first snowstorm. It's going to pass through the mid-Atlantic. However, it's going to sort of set the stage for this next snowstorm, because there's going to be just enough of a pressure gradient between this ridge, and so pressure is going to bring northeasterly winds towards the United States, and that will bring down a lot of that Arctic air stored in Canada, where the air in Canada at this point, it's at its coldest right now, because there's a lot of snowpack that's really creating a lot more colder conditions throughout Canada. So this should only enhance unstable air right around mid-Atlantic. And you see there's quite a strong low pressure system coming off the Northwest Pacific, and it's been quite a while since a lot of the Northwest Pacific been experiencing low pressures this big. Well, I wouldn't say a while, because it's only been like a week or two, but relatively speaking, when it comes to this winter, you guys got a little bit of a break, but it seems like it's going to end after this low pressure system moves through, where you're going to experience quite a bit of snow in the higher elevations, and this could potentially bring snow right around Seattle, as it's showing that the snow is in the lower elevations of the Northwest Pacific. So this could potentially be major, and then throughout California, you're again experiencing snow in a lot of the Northwest Pacific, and this is a very strong storm. There's going to be a lot of cold air behind it, which is typical for storms this large and then coming off the Northwest Pacific. And then you see it by the time it reaches the Midwest by day 4, there's just a large area of snow extending from Texas all the way as far north as Nebraska, and then this extends from Colorado to right around Chicago. So this is going to be just a very broad storm when it comes to snowfall. And the bad news is that, well, the good news, if you want to see snow, is that there's going to be a lot of unstable air thanks to how much cold air is going to be behind this storm. And this ridge is going to move further south to bring those northwesterly winds further south to interact with this very warm southeast air, and that could create potentially just major snowstorm that's affecting just a large area of the Midwest. And you see that by day 5, there's just heavy snow throughout the interior Northeast, and it's just a very, very heavy snowfall threat for a lot of the Midwest and the Northeast. And it's even going as far south as Arkansas, where you typically don't see that much snow, and Texas as well. So this could potentially be major for a lot of the United States in general, from the Northwest Pacific all the way to the Northeast, where this storm is going to pack a lot of power with it coming off the Northwest Pacific, and it's an instability as well to maintain that strength of this storm. So this could potentially be major. If we take a look at the European model, it isn't as lenient as bringing as much of a major snowstorm, however, so there's still definitely uncertainty regarding this forecast, because both the computer models are in somewhat disagreements with each other. Because here's a low pressure system, while the GFS and the European are both agreeing a low pressure will come off the Northwest Pacific, that's pretty much guaranteed. At this point, the European model isn't as lenient as wanting to strengthen this later during the forecast runs, because there just isn't going to be as much unstable air forecasted by the European model as much as the GFS model, where you see there's just a little bit of snow showers, and then we do see a low pressure system form off the East Coast, which looks very dire, typically speaking, because when we see a low pressure system move up the East Coast, that typically means there's a major snowstorm on the way. But in this case, it does seem like there's going to be enough unstable air to really create that major snowstorm and maybe dump a good amount of snow throughout the Northeast, but nothing major, I'd say, as a GFS, because especially since the Midwest and a lot of Southeast are completely missing out on this storm thanks to lack of unstable air. To show you guys this, let me show you the 500 millibar height anomaly. You see that by day 4, a little bit past day 4, there's just a big dip in the jet stream, a lot of cold air located right around the Midwest. Compare that to the European model, where the jet stream is a lot more straightened out and the cold air is further north, so there isn't enough unstable air to really create that major snowstorm that the European wants to. So yeah, there's still a lot of uncertainty. We need to see how much northwesterly winds are going to be in the United States to bring a lot of that cold air down to create that unstable air. And we just have to wait and see. But as of right now, you guys definitely need to be aware of this, because this could potentially be our next major snowstorm. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. And make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.